if you want to create, if you see the world and you would like it to be different, having clarity of vision of how you'd like to see it different is almost a necessity to doing anything big and complex and powerful.
Yeah.
Are you listening?
This is the Rob Scott Show.
Damn.
I mean, really, like, if we're not trying to change the world, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Rob Scott Show. I'm very, very happy to be here with you and with Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Rob. I'm glad to be here too. I'm excited for today's episode.
Me too. All right. You know what we're talking about. I'm not totally sure what we're talking about. What are we going to do today?
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about expectations. And I feel like it's going to relate a lot to the idea of creating a vision. So we may veer into some goal setting, but really we're talking about the importance of having a vision for your life and how having or not having expectations will help or hurt you do that.
That's awesome.
And it's kind of the why I wanted to talk about this today is that I think, and I'm excited for us to either debate it or for you to correct me or for you to teach something new here. But I think if you can break up with all our listeners, everyone, if we can learn kind of how to break up a little bit with the expectations that we have of certain outcomes, which we've referred to in other podcasts in the past, episodes in the past, but still kind of be able to have a clear vision for who we are, where we're going, what our goals are, then we will become more balanced. We will have the ability to take more powerful action. It will help us stay out of overwhelm. It will help us manage disappointments. We talked about unexpected life events, disappointments, and that kind of thing. And we got some great feedback. So I just kind of wanted to expand on that.
I love it. Yeah. So like vision, not versus expectation, but what's the difference between those things? I think you nailed it. And so that's our show today. No, no, but I think you're right as far as like how important visioning is. And let's talk about like what I mean by that and what we mean by that. But also expectations, they can be really important too, if you want to be creating and all that. But if we get too attached, they can cause a lot of suffering, and our ability to know when our expectations are serving us and when they're costing us is really, really important. So if I were to talk about visioning for 1 second, I think that the normal human animal doesn't take their vision far enough. I feel like it almost feels like there's a cognitive cost to imagining at that level.
Okay.
Many of us bounce off that. Just dealing with our day to day, we end up going with the default and following existing habits, whether they serve us or they don't. And we don't get creative enough about what we really can create or manifest or build, etc. And so the action or the act of learning how to really try to see a future, I have a thing called future visioning, where we actually use something else I use called future writing, where we actually write about the future in a way where we get really creative about what things might look like in the future, looking at different dimensions of your world. So who are you hanging out with? Have you made new and powerful friends? What kind of clothes are you wearing? Where are you living? Etc. Right? Describe that really clearly and give yourself the freedom to write whatever's inspiring, creative, and fun. And again, if you're not writing this, just in your imagination, imagine what's inspiring and fun, and then kind of back up from there and go, what happened right before that had to happen? Right? What happened right before that had to happen? So we're looking at it in reverse rather than trying to see it from here, because one of the biggest challenges of seeing things from here, especially for smart people, we end up noticing all the difficult things that are involved in getting to that next step. And to get past some of those challenges, you need to be inspired by the bigger vision. You need to do that.
Right.
And if you look at it backwards, you end up getting, okay, this is real clarity on what I want in great detail that's beyond what most people will spend their time and attention creating. And then I go back and I can now find really creative solutions to get to that. And from that reverse way, it tends to make more invisible some of the challenges that may come up along the way and really carves a much more creative and possible path to much bigger creation, et cetera. So does that make sense?
I already love that because I think that brings a new way that I think of, and I imagine some of our listeners too, to think about visioning, right? Just imagine yourself as this or that. And so starting there and going backwards, I think that's a useful tip. The kind of the examples that I thought about in relation to the expectation and the visions, and maybe I was coming at this with more of a how we expect things from other people or expect things from other situations.
Mm.
And it sounds like I'm excited to kind of talk more about this because there's also the expectations we have of self and vision for
Sure.
self. But the two examples I thought of were of why people might find this interesting or find this helpful is that I was thinking about when you're in a relationship, when you have expectations of how the relationship should be, and then it were to end, right? So that causes, to me, that felt like a nuance of that's the difference between having your heart broken and knowing that something was really good and then maybe it didn't work. And the other one I thought of was when parents have expectations of their children out of the gate, and then the children go a different way. And both those scenarios we talked about in, around other topics, but we talk a lot about how there's not a right and wrong, there's just two sides of things. So it's not that maybe the expectations were wrong or overbearing, but it's just like when we get so, like you said, attached to this way of like, this is how it's going to be. This is how my relationship is going to be. This is how my children are going to be like, and then something switches that's where I feel like people find themselves suffering in overwhelm or confusion or depression. And so that,
I think also that some of those expectations were not really that conscious of them. We can almost just feel that they're not occurring. Like the clarity of what we're expecting isn't as clear to us as just a general disappointment that something vague didn't happen, right? So when our child is misbehaving, that's breaking some expectation of behavior or something like that, but we're not really clear on what parts of it are most important to us, right? Maybe that child in that moment is showing independence in a way by resisting something or whatever. And if we really knew what we truly wanted out of that child, we had a clearer vision, a clearer expectation, we wouldn't be as let down. So I think that sometimes we get attached to things in the moment and we're just overwhelmed and we don't like it and we're not even that clear on what we don't like about it necessarily. But I love your relationship thing too, because I think that when we do have this big expectation about what it is, and then we find out that it's not that difference is like the amount of suffering, right? That's how hard the fall is, if you will.
Right.
If we're so off, it's incredibly disturbing to find out that, wow, that wasn't what I thought that was at all. It really, really hurts to fall from that high or different place. So, what do we do with expecting? I want to go back, and you mentioned it's not always good or bad. And I always try to see what are the different dimensions of these things. If you are trying to create something, there's a different way that you'll show up if you expect things to happen, right? So is it possible for us to hold real certainty about how we'd like things to go in a powerful way? So let's say I have a business expectation. We're going to launch and we're going to do this much money or whatever. There is absolutely power in being so committed to something that you're really sure it's going to happen. And it may even push you through certain times that are challenging or difficult if you're still holding on to, well, I don't care what just happened, we still have to get this outcome, right? So I want to celebrate that a little bit. There is a power in that for sure. And we don't want to just be completely passive and not have any kind of intentions or the one way down the scale way of being is I don't expect anything, I'm just fine. Right. It's probably the least powerful way to describe enlightenment is just completely accepting, surrender to everything, don't have any preferences. What I think we're trying to balance is, can we hold those hard expectations, and then once something really isn't met, like it's just off the table, it's not possible, can we then be okay in that difference? Can we be okay in that disappointment, right? So that in the one regard, we're really focused, we really have a clear intention, we've done the hard work of visioning something that's all the way down to the details so that we can see it, taste it, touch it. It's incredibly real to us. And then we show up in a way toward that, maybe expecting it, maybe really going, I'm not just wishing for that, I expect that to occur, right? That might be a more powerful way to live. And then challenges come up, and can we still hold that expectation? Can we still maybe get past and do it, align with our value system, et cetera, to make that a reality? It's a powerful mode of creation. But then life will surprise us. Life will disappoint us. Things will not show up in the way or the time or the amount that we expected. And so then can we have the maturity to not be attached to that expectation at that point? And so that's probably an art form more than it is a science.
Yeah, I was just going to say that seems like a real skill to hone, because that's just such a slight difference there.
Yeah. And I think as we become more aware of how our brain works, if we become more self-aware of the power of expectation and vision, and also the cost of them if we're suffering in them. Like as soon as that turns into suffering, are you able to like bring it back to breath? Are you able to turn off that attachment, right? But while it's still powerful and possible, can you hold that attachment if it's still serving you in a way to move into it, right? So if there is a science to it, that's when the time is. But the art is then applying that to the realities of your life and saying, in this moment, I realize there's nothing I can do about it. So I've got to surrender and accept, and that's okay. And I'm becoming more skillful at doing that all the time. But you know what? Right now, no, we're not dead yet. We can still do this. There's action to take here. I can still make this happen. Is a
right
way to be.
Right. And they're so layered. I guess kind of getting more into, it makes me want to skip more into the how, because I have a list of hows, but into the what, I wanted to ask you, do you think that having a vision, I don't even want to say goal, because I think there's a nuance between, setting a goal and having just a vision, being able to see yourself in a different place in the future. Do you think expectations create visions, or visions create expectations, or both? And is one healthier or less healthy, or just depends?
So there is a selfish sort of side to expecting, right? I don't know that that's like unbridled expectation sounds almost immature or selfish to me in a sense. Still a useful tool, still powerful, etc. However, I'm not sure I would want to teach expectation, to the human animal.
Sure.
If I have a child, it's not like, hey, just sit around and expect, right? That all by itself seems really immature and small. Visioning doesn't, in the way that I think of visioning anyway, that doesn't seem necessarily selfish or necessarily. In fact, it seems really creative and powerful to me. What I want to say in general is that we shouldn't assume that you have to have a vision of the future, right? If you're the kind of person where it's not attractive to you or you don't like it, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not like people who can powerfully vision, are better or any of that stuff. We're going to take that off the table. But if you want to create, if you see the world and you would like it to be different, having clarity of vision of how you'd like to see it different is almost a necessity to doing anything big and complex and powerful, right? So you can build a house without a blueprint. There's, I could probably get wood and nails and build something without a blueprint, but I'm not going to build a beautiful big mansion without a blueprint, right? There needs to be a vision and a real plan. And those things we normally, before creating it, we have to think of it. We have to imagine the creation first. And the power of that imagination is what I would call a vision, right? The clarity of that vision. And then, really getting skilled at this. If I'm working with a client or something, we're going to take that into, well, then how do you make that a reality through anything from diagrams to planning to project management to assigning to other people to like really making it a reality in the world. But all of that is born out of what do you see in your mind for how the future can be different than now, right? So when I talk about things, there's kind of our spiritual life where the goal may be presence and non-striving and appreciation and gratitude and arrivedness and being awake. And then there's the more human side of things, which is in time and striving and achieving and right. So we're holding both
being
of those.
And doing.
Yeah, exactly. Being and doing. So I want people to always have this mastery of being, right? No matter what your situation, no matter what's happening, can you be awake and happy and arrived and whole? And then can you hold the paradox of, from that place, there's a lot I'd like to do, right? There's a lot I'd like to grow into. And can you be wonderfully human and expressive and huge and full of duality and full of good and bad in your life and on this amazing poetic roller coaster, and also have one foot in non-duality or presence, etc. So the one way I often say that is everything is perfect and there's tons to do, right? That's the paradox. And so I love that. This episode, I think we're mostly talking about the doing, and in that it's not about the power of appreciation. It's not about necessarily in the moment being grateful. It's really, what do you want to create? What do you want to make happen? And then to what degree are you going to expect that to really occur for you, right? Versus expecting it like, I'm just do this. That's not the energy that we're talking about here. We're talking about having a real sense of assuredness that you can achieve and create what you're trying to do. Sure.
Yeah. And I think that, I guess, how I would answer my own question then is, it seems that there's a self-awareness to knowing if you're someone who's choosing to have a vision, who wants to be somewhere beyond where you're at, and that's important to you, that's a value of yours.
Yeah.
That if you're going to have expectations that are serving you, you would want to make them based off of knowing the clarity of vision. And that when you start with expectations and then try to build a vision around expectations that you have of yourself, of other people, of the things that are around you, that's maybe like a lower awareness level to be at, and maybe harder to get somewhere, right? Because you're not
what I'm hearing is that my 5-minute babble rant didn't answer the question. But no, I'm right with you. I think if one precedes the other, it's probably vision, right? Like you have to imagine what you're going to expect, right? So, right. And again, I don't want to, I really
would you say that most people do not? Because I feel like that's why I wanted to tackle this, because often I feel like people find they're disappointed by on many, many different levels. And so that's kind of where this birthed for me, in the thought seed was, why are we all so disappointed all the time if everything's perfect and there's so much to do? And then I thought, it's maybe because we have unrealistic expectations, and then
so we don't have a great skill of appreciating that perfection, number one. Right. So we're disappointed in that. Everything seems like it sucks because I haven't trained my mind to learn how to realize that everything's actually really awesome, right? I haven't trained my mind to be confident enough to be excited about challenges and problems rather than like burdened with them, right? Mm-hmm. I have some expectation, some crappy, immature expectation that everything's supposed to be easy and perfect, and that's what it looks like in all these people on Instagram and everything. And why is my life not like that? And so I'm going to complain and have inner struggle and inner upset rather than realizing, wow, this is an amazing ride. Look at this. This feels great. I could do these things, right? We haven't learned how to do that very well. And so I think unbridled expectation is a huge root of that suffering, right? That whether we picked it up ourselves or the messaging from TV or our parents or whatever's letting us feel like I'm not enough, this isn't enough, I expect more, I wish there was more.
Yes, it's coming from not, the quote unquote not enough.
Yeah,
whatever you want in front of that.
Totally. So, some of us identify that I'm not enough, right? Like maybe I don't even deserve this or whatever. That's its own special hell, right? That's right. maybe I'm a fraud, maybe I'm not who I'm supposed to be, and so I'm in this whole fake thing, but like I'm not enough, I'm really not talented enough, all that. Some people don't identify that maybe they're not enough, but instead the not enough is out there, right? I don't have enough money. Maybe I'm not good looking enough, or I don't have enough friends, or I don't have the good enough job, or my car's not enough, etc. Right? So that not enough muscle is something we have to get past immediately, because otherwise everything is going to feel like some disappointment to us, right?
Yeah.
So getting past that is hurdle number one for sure. After that, once you feel like maybe I am enough, maybe this is a wonderful life I'm in, all that, then
I have enough, or
right. Yeah. I may want more, but I'm really appreciative of what I do have, right? This is amazing, and I have aspirations, and I can see a different future, or I can hope for a different future. I want to go back and kind of just restate that I don't think I said it hard enough or clearly enough or really landed on this. Your ability to spend a little extra time going through the difficulty of getting more specific about what you want and what your vision is a really powerful action all by itself. If you do nothing else, take away going just a little bit further in your thinking, because thinking is a cost, right? Thinking is and I don't mean just random thought, but I mean
caloric cost to us.
Yeah, like actual difficult thinking and creativity is a caloric cost to the brain. And so we sort of move off that. We move off it pretty quickly, much more quickly than we should. And so doing that work to really challenge yourself into, well, what's more specific about that? How many sales, how many people, how much money, what kind of house, what's in the house? Do I have people working for me? How much free time do I have? When is that free time? Like really down to specifics. Like, do I want free time in the winter so I can go skiing, or in the summer, or both, or all that stuff, right? How big is this business? How many people is it helping? How, what kind of change is it causing in the world over time? Generationally, what's that change? All the way out to thinking about it more. Now you start having a tangible vision. And the power of that vision, let's say you're in business, that could be your brand, right? That description of a different future becomes incredibly powerful to other people. Not only that, and we were talking before about not everybody has to have a vision. You don't have to be somebody who wants to change anything.
Right.
But if you are, I'm going to suggest that the most powerful people are the people that really see a different future, right? The people that create the most change, maybe, are people that have this incredibly clear vision. Because if we're going to lead other people, like on our team, me and you, if I'm not clear about my vision, I can't really describe it to you. And then we're both working, kind of spinning around each other, not really
and
sure.
expecting,
Expecting, but maybe even not sure about what we expect. But there's this feeling of expectation, like this is supposed to be going better, et cetera. So nothing's really clear or about anything. Now, all of a sudden, if I have a really clear vision and I can describe that to you so well that you can see it too, now you don't have to listen to me about what I'm telling you to do. I don't have to lead you in the same way. You can individually see that vision and get creative about how you want to create that vision too. And I can be incredibly hands-off and just kind of check in on the vision, not on how you're doing, because I'm going to let you, because what I think you need to do, you may know you better than I do and go, well, I know he wants me to do these 10 things, but it's way more powerful if I do this. Now we have let's say we're adding a bunch of people on that problem. Now we have a bunch of people working at their best to create the same vision. That's so much more powerful, right? It's just so much more powerful.
Oh, and just to kind of to blow that out a little bit more, like let's take that same scenario and let's put it with parents and their children, right?
Yeah.
If you can clearly describe your vision of your, I don't know, probably wouldn't use that word, but your rules or your guidelines or kind of the moral code of how you want your family to be raised, that allows your children to understand why there's certain quote unquote expectations. Same in relationships, right? If you're trying to cohabitate with somebody and you're like, what's our end goal? And like, let's each get there, but like, let's know where we're going. And that, then you don't have these like expectations. Why does this person want this of me? Why are my parents saying this of me? Why does my boss give me this task? There's instantly clarity among your relationships, better communication. And less, I think, surprise, disappointment, or discouragement, or kind of inaction, some freezing because you're just like, I don't know. So that's super, super useful, I think.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say about expectation is I always try to take a concept and look at like what's good about this, what's maybe bad, et cetera, so that we're not just pigeonholing things. And so I think earlier in the talk, I spent a lot of time saying how expectation can be powerful, et cetera. I think generally we can maybe throw expectation under the bus a little bit more. If you're living a life where you're expecting a lot, it is selfish often, right? It is, it can be a powerful way to be. I'll keep saying that. However, the way you're talking about it, right? That tonality of like when I have expectations. So, being connected to what you want, incredibly powerful, all these things, but expectation is set up to let us down at some point.
Right.
If I have an expectation, the chances of meeting it exactly are very, very low. And so whatever degree I'm attached to that expectation, it's set up to be different than what happens, quite possibly. Right. And maybe I exceed my expectations and that's great. Right. But many times it's not going to be exactly right. It's not going to be in the amount or the time or in the way. It's not going to feel as good, et cetera. And so we end up getting really let down. So I'm not sure that you should be, again, I said, I'm not going to teach a child just to have expectations. I don't know that as adults, we should just sit around and go, I expect, right? So, instead we have these, what I call detached goals, right? We're really committed to the parts of goals that I control, right? Mm-hmm. I've got a really clear intention or vision about what I'd like, which includes things I don't control. And then really where I'm judging myself is I'm judging myself over time on like, how did I show up to what I knew I could control, right? So an intention or a vision might be, I want to make $1 million this year, right? But the goal isn't to make $1 million because I don't control that. A ton of people are going to have to buy, a ton of other people are going to have to make decisions about stuff. But what do I control? Well, I can make a plan and I could say, we're going to launch 4 times this year or whatever those things are. And then I can judge myself against what I fully controlled, right? Did we launch? Did I do the marketing? Did we keep podcasting? Did we whatever? And if I'm doing those, whether the expectation or the vision comes true or not, that's just information about whether my plan was right and all that. Where I can personally develop is, hey, I know I showed up for everything I set up to do. It didn't work out. Our marketing wasn't good enough or this or that. That can be okay. But what I'm judging myself against is wow, I really showed up. I was really my word with myself. It was great. Obviously, we need a new plan. We're going to try this different thing now. But that's a much healthier way to deal with visioning and expectation and intentions and all that stuff.
Definitely. And we've kind of trickled into the how, the
Yeah.
things that I had listed to kind of help us with, disappointment, discouragement, and inaction. I think mindfulness, we talked about, like
For
understanding
sure.
presence, not necessarily flexing a judgment muscle, right? Having that kind of flexibility, resilience to know like there's other external factors beyond me. Good goal setting habits, which I think you were just saying, like intention versus vision, realizing we only control ourselves. But I think underneath all that, which is the meaning making. So I think in order to vision in the way that you're talking about beyond, or to have that kind of understanding of, I had these intentions and I did what was in my control and I'm still okay, right? I'm not, my world isn't shattered. Is that whole idea of the not enough is making sure that the meaning making that you're making, so you can even create a vision that's big. Because if you're someone that's strapped with, I'm not enough, they're not enough, I don't have enough, the world is not enough, how can you ever see a huge vision? And then how can you be resilient within it? You can't if you're carrying the I'm not enough. So maybe, that meaning making is where all of it kind of, that needs to be
for
running
sure
all the time.
Yeah, I keep thinking of this Venn diagram that I want to do. Like before even meaning making is almost like attention, right? Our attention is a place. We're putting it either on the past or in imagination or the future or this moment somewhere. And through that, we're making up stories. We're making up meaning as we do this. And it seems to the average individual that the meaning is out there and we're here to interpret it. But actually, we're the one giving things meaning, right? Things just happen. There's an isness out there and we're creating the story about it. And starting to learn how to do that differently, to realize what parts of your meaning making you really control. And again, because there is other out there. Yes, somebody can punch me in the face, and if I'm enlightened, I can make a different meaning out of it. That's entirely true. I really do make the meaning. But if people keep punching you in the face, it's pretty sensible to think that's horrible, and you're going to change my meaning. You're going to be able to move me off my game. It's not like that only our thought creates reality, obviously, right? Like there's reality out there too, interacting with my thought. But the degree that we can change our meaning, change our thinking, and have a huge effect on ourselves and the world, it's just immeasurably more powerful than any other shortcut you want to take, right? That mastery over your own meaning making is enormous. Especially, it may be the most valuable thing in the world for the people that feel like they're not enough, right? Because that's something that you're going to have to get past. And if you ever sign up for therapy or coaching or you work with anybody to get past that, that has to become untrue in the now. Like there has to be a moment where that is no longer, fact for you. And so that's what's at stake here, that we absolutely ground zero have to get past. And I love how you pointed out, I think I sort of spoke into it before, that from that place of not enough, we're not going to be able to craft a vision that's meaningful. I mean, we might have a vision, but maybe it's just a hope to get back to normal or something, right? It's certainly not inspiring. It's not moving the needle for the rest of the world. It's not doing these things. And what I find is most of the people that feel like they're not enough, they're highly intelligent. They're dealing with the complexity of life. It's overwhelming because their thinking is fast and can do all these things. It leads to anxiety and depression, right? These are not stupid people. These are not people that there's really anything wrong with. They're just stuck in like overwhelm and decision fatigue and just being exhausted. And oftentimes when you can gain a different way of meaning making, you become the kind of people that not only can immediately help yourselves, but you can start to become people that help the rest of the world. You can start to live big purpose-filled lives. And when I think about vision, that's what that's about, right? Martin Luther King said, I have a dream, right? That might as well be, I have a vision, because he goes on to talk about, kids of different colors holding hands and playing in the street. And he's painting a vision. And it's what's so powerful about his talks is they're painting a vision of how things can be different. Just talking about that vision by itself is incredibly powerful. And it gives us a roadmap and we know what to move toward, right? So, I could go on and on and on about vision.
No, I mean, I love that. I mean, I think that like really resonates, and that's really good. And it's just, I always think you have to, if you want to be someone that helps others, you have to be that way to yourself. Right. And that's
Yeah.
the work that you do with clients and all that stuff. So it's like, if you're sensing, hey, if you're saying, my finances are not good. I don't have enough money. My work doesn't give me enough opportunities. My partner isn't this or that, or it's not enough. I go out and my friendships aren't this or that. It's not enough. Like, maybe start with then, why do you think that all this other stuff in your life that you're holding expectations about are not enough? Like, check in, like, do you in some level then feel like you're not enough? Because you're the common denominator in your finances, your business, your relationships, your family.
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah.
And so, like, solving that, and then, if you don't think that's a problem, try to do a vision, a big vision, powerful vision, and see if that's a struggle for you. Because if it is, like, what's that block? Like, I think that's a huge useful tip that we can kind of pass off to the listeners. And then that's just going to allow you to be happier, to be able to say, this is perfect, and there's a lot to do, and to be in less stress, and to feel less derailed by things, and to set healthy expectations if that's something that you're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence about expectations.
I think there are healthy expectations. Often they're set up to let us down, so be careful with them. But yeah, I think
and sometimes you need help with that.
Of course. Yeah. And I think when you're visioning, give yourself the space to be creative enough to not believe it at first, and then see if you can get your mind around believing it, right? Can you see something big for yourself? Maybe even turn it up. Maybe take whatever you chose and see if you can make them bigger. See if you can make it more money. See if you can make it more free time. See if you can affect more people with your change, whatever those things are. See if your body can look even better. Turn those up, and then see at what point. And if you're just creating visions that you don't believe in, there's a problem before that in you, right? And, so why do you have a ceiling of money cap of what you believe you can make? Do you have what
your body can look like, what your ideal partner, who your children should be like? All of that.
Right. And so, be careful. And that's a great check-in to go, okay, do I have work to do on myself here? Or, is it just, I didn't have an inspiring vision before, and now I do. And now I'm excited to go, tackle working at that and getting toward that. I can tell you that if you can connect with like your purpose and some, place of service that's big and inspiring to you, and you can create an empowering and powerful vision about that, that alone starts to motivate. It starts to move you. It starts to help you lead, whether that's leading yourself or leading your family or leading a business or leading friends or a cause. It's just incredibly powerful. So I love, if I had to vote on those two words, I'm voting for vision, right? We're going to have hopefully less expectations, a little bit more, commitment to the vision for sure. But let's not be selfish with our expectations. Just go me, why? It should be all this. That seems low level consciousness to me, in that regard. But expect that you can do things to whatever degree, and show up for yourself.
Don't be afraid to set intentions, right? Because maybe intentions are that middle ground between so attached to these expectations that are potentially going to disappoint you, and so out there in a vision that you can't get to, is like, list out your intentions, then like be easy on yourself and be easy on the other people. And if you struggle doing it, this really relates to what we do, and I know that we have tools that will help people find that are invisible. I know that you're very good at working on helping people create visions, not only in business, but, personal stuff too. So if it's something that you are discovering, like, hey, or if this is really resonating with you, like, definitely reach out and see what resources are available to you, because help with it.
Yeah, I mean, we often talk about identity shifting. This is really, especially if you've got that not enough bug going on for yourself, or you're struggling coming up with a vision or any of that stuff, go to identityshifting.com, and it really is, it's the game changer. It is the thing that will change the whole thing for you. So any other things you wanted to go over?
That was awesome. Yeah, I hope that really helps you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, see if you can create a vision for yourself. I think that's a great next step. We appreciate your time and attention. Be kind to yourself and everybody else. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Talk soon.